Online as well. Welcome. This is November 16th, 2023. We are just a week away from Thanksgiving, y'all. That happened fast. And in honor of Thanksgiving, we have a wonderful turkey meal back there. We've got some turkey. I think, did we do the collard greens? We got some, we got food. So those of you who are in person, eat up. Those of you who are not in person, I'm sorry you're not able to partake today. But I do hope that you have some fun with us. We are going to have a fantastic day. But I'm going to go through some quick announcements. Your thoughts matter so much to us. So please, right there on the screen is the QR code. You can scan it right now with your phone. We definitely want to get feedback from you about what we're doing right, what we're not, what we might need to make some changes on, and how we can make this a better experience for you as a student. So please complete the feedback surveys. You can go back and do every single one of the sessions that you've attended if you haven't done one yet. So there's still time to submit. Don't worry, but please make sure that you're clicking on that QR code so that you can scan the survey. And they will be coming up again at the end. So don't worry if you miss it now, it'll come up again. All right, we have end of term celebration. Some of you may have received, not everybody yet, but it will be coming. But most of you who are here will probably have received already the invitation to our big event that we have coming at the end of term. We want to celebrate our Black scholars. Some students who have that 3.0 or higher GPA may be eligible for a scholarship. So if you received an invitation from me this week, you don't want to miss out, because if you don't come to the event, you can't get the scholarship. So come on out. Register. We've already got 9 students who registered, and that means we have 31 spots left. And you can bring a guest. So this can be a celebratory time for you and a guest, a family member, to celebrate your excellence as a Black student this term. Travis, if you can come on up, we have some wonderful civic engagement experience coming up in December with My Block, My Hood, My City. And we want many of you to come out and support what we are doing. So Travis is going to give you a little bit more details about that.
Hey, you guys. So again, how's everyone doing? We will be working with an organization called My Block, My Hood, My City, and they light up King Drive on December the 2nd. So what they do is go from, I think, 115th Street all the way down to 35th Street, where they allow for community members who want to help make King Drive look beautiful. And so we'll meet up at 10 a.m. The location will be around 8330 South King Drive. And we'll meet up as a group, meaning that you can arrive there in a car with the people that you want to support you, and then they'll give us an address that we'll go to. We're signing up as a university, so as an organization. So because we're signing up as an organization, we will all ultimately end up in the same location. You guys will receive something from me soon that just allows for you to sign up. So for you to say that you want to participate, and then from there, we'll be able to present that number to My Block, My Hood, My City in terms of who signed up. And then with those numbers, they'll start to give us out our address in terms of where we'll go. So a part of the sign up we'll ask is those who want to participate, who actually has cars. You can bring some of your community members or your family with you as well if you'd like to help. But this is a great chance for us to give back. Hopefully the weather is not too bad on December the 2nd. It is a Saturday, and the expectation or the time frame will be from 10 a.m. To 2 p.m. So again, My Block, My Hood, My City, lighting up King Drive. Great opportunity for us to give back to the community.
Thank you, Travis. And just so y'all know, as of right now, we are standing in the M.E. Moore Center for Black Academic Achievement, y'all. I know traditionally at National Louis, this has been called the Innovation Lab, but we from 11 to 2 on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and 4 to 5 Wednesdays, Thursdays, Mondays and Tuesdays from 4 to 5. This space is officially called the M.E. Moore Center for Black Academic Achievement. So we want you utilizing this space as a community. Come in and if you've got classmates who you want to do some work with together, come to this space and do your study time. We will be working with tutoring support. So you should have received in the BC newsletter that you're getting weekly, there's a notification for signing up. If you're needing some tutoring assistance, and we can have some tutoring support for you available in this space as well. So we want to have you already feel like you belong to each other. Now let's continue to grow in how we belong academically here at NLU. And next week we have, or not next week, but the next time we meet will be November 30th, and we'll have with us Jillian Caldwell. She is one of the counselors in our wellness center, and she's going to be talking about her name. Because as you see, it's not Jillian, it's Jillion. And she's going to talk about the reason behind that and what names mean to Black communities and why we tend to use the names we do. And it'll be a powerful time for us to talk about that because it's rooted in our history, the different names we have and why we have them. So join us on November 30th. That will also be webinared. So those of you who are online, you'll be able to participate in that one as well. And today we have with us my dear friend, Pam Bozeman, who is currently the COO for New Moms Chicago. So she oversees a whole lot of the logistics around facilities, the staffing. They have a wonderful social enterprise where they make candles, and it's called Bright Endeavors. And for those of you who don't know what New Moms is an organization that supports young women who are new parents. And so these young women might not necessarily have traditionally the support that they're needing to be successful in their careers. The women at New Moms helps to make that happen for them. They create a community of support and care so young moms can thrive in the city of Chicago. So she does an amazing job there of helping to build financial infrastructure, supporting Bright Endeavors, supporting the staff, doing all these wonderful things. But prior to that, Pam has an amazing background working with Barack Obama and helping him in his campaign with his volunteers and helping him just in volunteers in general, I think when he was still doing advocacy down on the streets. And she has also done some wonderful work building, essentially it was the inaugural, wasn't it, Career Center at University of Chicago. So the fact that University of Chicago has a career center to support students is because of Pam. I am thankful that she became my friend through Public Allies Chicago. She volunteered her time with Public Allies to give back to help young people learn to become future leaders. And through that, I was leading the curriculum and training at the time, and I got to meet Pam through that. And she's been a part of my life ever since. She has been an amazing support to me as a Black female. And if any of you think about what you want in your future for your posse and your people and your tribe, you want somebody like Pam, because she encourages those who are around her all the time, but she'll never let you stay there. She'll always challenge you to be your best. So you want those people in your life who will always challenge you, but love you and love you enough not to let you stay in a place that might be creating you harm. So I'm thankful that she gets to be part of my tribe. And I hope that you get to learn from her and maybe become part of her tribe as well. Pam, the floor is yours. Thank you so much. Let's give her a round of applause, everybody.
I'll point at you. I like you. Okay. Hi, everybody. How are you? So I realize that this microphone is really for the folks that are online. Can everybody hear me okay? So I'm going to awkwardly stand near this microphone while I'm more natural walking around. But I just want to say for those who are not in the room that I am inspired and in awe by the absolute beauty and grace and dignity presented to me today by the young people who are in this space. I'm so happy to be with you. You give me energy. You give me life. I know we don't know each other, but by the time that I end, I hope to know you, and I hope that you get a chance to know me in all of the areas that are most important to us, which is in our spirits, because spirits can actually know each other a lot quicker than introducing ourselves by name, credential, and title. So my hope is that our spirits have a connection. When Shelley invited me to join you today, it was really about sharing my story and kind of putting that in context and hopefully using my story as kind of a leverage for us to understand who we are today and how we empower communities. I have a few pictures, but I really just want to share with you that the theme of my talk today for about 30 minutes is really around the idea of love and fear. And love and fear are inextricably connected. And for most of us, we've been told that you should not fear, right? Only to live in love. I would like to argue that that's not quite my philosophy. I think fear is an incredible motivating force to get us to make good decisions, bad decisions. It helps to shape us. And I don't think that you can love radically without also having risk and fear. So that's what I want to explore with you today through some images. For those of you who can see online and for those of you in the room, I thought the first most important picture to show you was my posse, the original genetic crew. I am an only child, right? So one would think what you think about only kids, but I can honestly tell you that I never felt like an only child because I had a bazillion cousins. And you know, in our communities, cousins are really siblings. We just are. So we call each other brother cousin, sister cousin. I would never have nieces, but that are biological necessarily until I was married. But everybody calls everybody TT. They are, right? We didn't really understand what first cousins were or second cousins. We look like each other. We played together. We held space for one another. I know I've got a set of twins in the room, and I want to introduce you to my twins, Lena and Tina, who are transformative parts of my story. Mark, Nettie, Nikki, and Phil. It's an important place to start because when we think about who we are and whose we are, if you have a family like I had a family, I was really clear about who I was. One of the most prominent things that my family would say all the time, from my elders all the way up to my cousins and younger cousins, was, who are we? And who are we was the way we course corrected each other. So if you were out in the street doing the absolute fool, somebody in your family would say, well, who are you? That's not who we are. Get yourself together. Don't embarrass me, right? Please don't go out here in these streets and do anything that would embarrass our family. I think that's really important, right? And so in exploring fear, I want to talk about the fact that when I was growing up, I had probably less fear than most, because when you have a posse, when you have a real posse, you don't walk through life fearful, right? That something bad is going to happen to you. I don't think I ever really learned how to fight, to be honest. You know how most kids have that first critical fight? Well, by the time I had my first fight, it was a surprise to me because I had older cousins and older sister cousins and brother cousins who they did all the fighting for me. I would just kind of huddle in the back and let you get beat up, right? Because when you have older cousins who are down for you like that, there was no reason for me to fight. But I did have a bully. Her name was Stephanie. I won't say her last name because she's still around and I happen to like her. But Stephanie would torture me, right? She would find me, push me in the bathroom, push me down, tear up my tights, right? And my parents, who were trying to be nonviolent, would say, please don't go in there and, lose your mind. Try to work this out. We'll talk to the principal. We'll do some things. And I tried. I did try. And so I initially, my dad would say, look, don't fight, because if you fight, you're going to go to the office, and we don't want that. Remember, because who we are dignified and we are respectful and we don't get in trouble. So when you have those stories, I was like, well, if I have a fight, I'm going to get in trouble. So after my dad and mom had all of these wonderful and amazing conversations with the principals and the teachers, my dad woke up one morning and said, I think you're going to have to go in there and knock this child on her behind. And I was shook because, again, I didn't know how to fight. I was a product of brothers and sister cousins. And so I didn't know how to do that. But my dad said, what I don't want you to do is to come home and tell me that you took one for the team one more time. I need you to go in there and do damage, right? So I get to school. I'm shaky. I'm a little nervous. She's already in the classroom. And you remember those chairs where the desk was connected all in one piece? And I came into the room, and I don't know what took over, but I jumped full force in this child's chest. And I rocked her in that chair back to the floor. Boom! And the teacher was like, what? The child is lost her. Oh my God. And it was just a scandal. And the teacher had to pull me off of this girl. And she got us to the office. And the principal looked at me and winked and said, I'm sorry, you're having a bad morning. Go back to class. And I got a chance to leave Stephanie in the office. And as I went down the hall, teachers were giving me the high five on the slip slide. About time. Should have took care of that girl. So he said, well, we're going to call your parents. So, of course, my dad came up and he came into the classroom and he said, no fighting. And I said, yes, sir. And then he winked and smiled. Because who we are, right? Who we are is that we are dignified and respectable, and we are kind and we're compassionate. And only when you have been pushed to your limits should you put your dukes up and defend yourself. Because at that point, it was no longer a question about who you were, but justice. And this wasn't just. Stephanie came back into the classroom right around lunchtime. She reached over and she said, I apologize. That was big news for kids. Kids didn't apologize. I figured an adult had made her do that. But over the course of time, we became friends. Why? Because she was becoming a part of my community. Isn't that interesting? You can have a fight with someone and still invite them into your community. She knew that it would be better to be in relationship with me than to be at war with me. It's an interesting thing that communities can do that for each other. The other way that we realize who we are around fear and love, not only from our families, but we have to remember those critical expectations that our families and friends have of us. So I'm just going to ask all of you to think about this. You don't have to answer. But what did you want to be? The first memory, what did you think you wanted to be growing up? I say around 5, 6 years old. Does anybody just give me a thumbs up if you kind of remember what you really, really wanted to be? I see lots of thumbs in the room. I hope there's some thumbs online. So what's interesting is I thought I wanted to be a wartime journalist because I was, I thought I wanted to go out into the war and take pictures and interview people. And I thought that was the right thing to do. And some of you might have wanted to be a ballerina, an astronaut, a cowboy, a firefighter, right? But what is interesting about the people who love us accidentally is that because they love us, they start to steer us away from our dreams. Hold on to yourself, right? Because I just started out with family is everything. And yet it was my parents who said, I'm not sure you want to do that. You don't even like loud sounds. You're going to have to get a real job and make some real money, girl. I think you need to choose this kind of major over this one. Now, they loved me more than life. So why would they steer me away from my dreams? Well, this is one of those first maturing lessons that even the people who love you, your family, your community, your friends, your neighbors, will start to steer you in the way that they think you should go, not because of what you can or cannot do, but because of their fears. And people who have their fears sometimes superimpose them on our loved ones. I've done it to my son, right? I did it to myself. Well, I can't do that. So I should go get a real degree and a real job. I'm no storyteller. I'm not able to do that. And that didn't come from Stephanie, my bully. That came from people who loved me. So fear is a critical way that we evolve and develop because someone else told us what we couldn't do. When you grow up and you are from a working class family and you grow up poor, that's P-O, because that's how poor some of us have been. When you grow up in that environment, fear takes on a new language. In other words, I can't afford for you to go to college and screw this up. I need you to do this and do it well. We can't afford those mistakes. But those folks who are more affluent and have money are given more opportunity to go out into the world and try new things. That's a mistake that we have in Black and brown communities, that we have discouraged our children from making mistakes and wasting a little bit of money and wasting a little bit of time to discover who they are and whose they are, to flex their muscle. So I realized that I had more affluent white counterparts who were traveling to Europe. They were taking a gap year. They were able to take romance languages. What? Romance languages? Baby, that's not accounting. What are you talking about? But they were permitted to think differently, and therefore their career choices were far more open. Their opportunities were more open because their dreams were not squashed by fears, the fears of the people who love us and our own fears. But I also knew some Black and brown kids who were risking, daring, dreaming, doing interesting things, right? Breaking away from those fears and making a difference. I actually know not one, but two professional paid ballerinas, sisters, because they had to make a decision that in order for them to fulfill what was great inside of them, that they had to distinguish their own fears, and they had parents who had fears, but loved them enough to try. And they removed some of the stigma. They didn't have any more money than I did. They did it on the cheap. They did the cheap lessons. They got the cheaper shoes. They got the cheaper tutus. And because they were loved and confident and assured, they had to practice harder. They had to stay up later. They had to do it better. They had to run longer. They had to be smarter. They had to endure criticism that others didn't have to endure. And today, one right now is performing in New York. Why? Because you have to unshackle yourself from the fears that create ideas in your mind that aren't true. Next picture for me, please. That's me. That's okay. I like me too. So I would like to introduce you to my greatest inspiration. I'm coming from the Generation X. This is my kid who is now soon to be 19 years old in a few days. His name is Andre. I call him AJ. And the reason why I love this picture is because that expression was about the beauty and royalty of youth before it is touched by adult supervision. When you are a child and you don't have to pay rent, you don't have a significant other, you don't have any responsibilities, life was swell for my kid. He knew no boundaries. And that smile was genuine, right? And what he was looking at and what he was thinking, I don't really know, but I can tell you that he was free. And I had determined when I became a mother that I was going to try as much as I could not to superimpose my fears on him. What would this experiment look like if he didn't know we were working class? What would this experiment look like if I smashed all the bullies behind his back? He didn't really have to deal with that. So I'd make his dad go around and give people the stank eye, right? What would it look like if he came into the world and got the idea that college was just a given? It wasn't an option. You're going to go to college. It's just whether you're going to get 2 master's degree or 1 PhD. That was our conversation. What would it look like if my kid got a chance to go to Washington, Houston, New York, just because? What would it look like if his first book wasn't the one that was assigned by his teacher, but it was assigned by me? What does this experiment look like if you love radically enough that you say, I'm going to take away any possibility of fear and let you live fully and wholly? I'm going to ask Miss Shelley to flip it to the next picture because I think it tells an interesting set of stories. What does it look like when your kid sees life through lenses that don't begin with what I don't have, but the possibility of what I do have? This picture is important to me because that's what it looks like. Ooh, ah. What you don't know is he turned around and said, can I get in there with those fish? Mom, I think I can swim. Mom, you know what? That big fish on the top, can we take him home? In that moment, it was all possible because I didn't start with, no, baby, don't touch the glass, you'll leave fingerprints. No, baby, you don't know how to swim. It all began with absolutely. Let's figure out. Let's work to yes. Let's go find somebody and ask for that fish. What? You want to do that? Let's try it. He did end up finding someone who worked there at the aquarium. He did ask, can I have that fish? He did for the first time hear no, but he heard an adult say, but I can tell you where to go buy one. I can tell you how to take care of it. I can tell you how to do that on the cheap. Wow. Right? What does that look like? Next slide, please. So this is him fast forward in our Sherlock Holmes murder mystery style. And the reason why I'm smiling like that is not just because we're out together, but because, again, I am now growing. I see the seed. I see the practice, right? I can be silly with him. But more importantly, I'm proud of him. I'm proud of him because he walks through the world asking questions. We were there celebrating the day after he had a confrontation with a teacher. The teacher did not give them the appropriate materials to study. He went into the class as the other students got into the class. He got a C on a test. Some of the other students didn't do any better or worse. And he challenged the teacher and said, you didn't give us the material. So the teacher said, well, you'll have to pick that up later with the next test. And he said, nah, that's not how this works. I want the whole class to have a redo. Now, of course, the teacher sends me a message. Andre is being contrite. And I sent her a message back saying, absolutely. And I said, he'll be back to be more contrite tomorrow. I recommend a retake. Because now that I've told you to be fearless, I have to have your back. And you're doing justice work. So I have to then make sure that people understand that your justice is a reality. It took her about a week to debate it, but he did get a retake after he got all the information. And everybody's grade raised at least one, if not 1.5 grades higher. Because that's what the experiment is. When you know whose you are, and when you know who you are, and if you go into the world without fear and radical love for everybody in the classroom, then you see how everybody gets lifted. Everybody does better when we have healthy, non-toxic people who can go through the world and make decisions, right? The other thing that I love about this kid, and around the time of this picture, he says, Ma, I need to talk to you. I said, of course you do, my friend. He said, look, I've got this very diverse group of friends. Some of them use a different pronoun. Okay, go slow. He says, now look, this person is a they. They are a they. So don't mess this up. I said, baby, I'm going to mess this up. Don't mess this up. Do you have any questions, Mom? Yes. Anything you want to tell me about your identity? No, ma'am. I'm a cisgender Black man. That's what you need to know. This is my friend, and they have a name that is without gender. They are non-binary. I'm going to need you to get that together. So around this time, he said, yeah, you know, when brothers talk, one of the worst insults somebody can call you as a fag. So this guy I don't even really know said, this fag. And so I said, well, what did you say, son? Because, you know, I'm all about slaying dragons. Where do I need to report to with my purse? What I got to do? He said, you don't have to do anything because that wasn't an insult to me. What does that mean? You're a straight guy. Absolutely. But if I revel too hard in that term, what am I saying to my friend who uses the pronoun they? Is it bad to be gay? So why would I be offended by you calling me fag? I'd be more pissed off if you call me broke or call me late to dinner. But calling me a fag is not the insult. That just demonstrates your ignorance. Well, now I got butterflies in my stomach because not only did I plant a seed, not only did I tell him what he could and could not do in the world, but now he is lifting me. I am going to be smarter and better because of what I planted in him. And the solutions that I might have used, because if you had called me a dyke back when I was his age, oh, that was a fight. That was right up there with bitch. What? Okay. I'd be doing my hoop earrings off. I'd be pulling my longer than now hair back. But I now have said that the things that I would have used to fix those problems are not the way that he can fix his own problems, right? Wow, what am I doing right here? Next slide. This is my cousin, Nikki. Nikki is standing next to my son. Nikki is also AJ's godfather, because in my family, everybody has 3 titles. We don't do outside stuff. The reason why I share this picture with you is because in my life, my earliest babysitters included my great-grandmother and my cousin Nick. Fathom that. Think about the time we live in today where you don't even leave kids with anybody. Nikki was one of my first babysitters. Nikki taught me how to walk. And he did that for a price of an Italian Fiesta pizza, right? $10 from my dad on a weekly basis. And the music that I heard growing up centered me. The Isley Brothers, right? Smokey Robinson, James Brown, right? Because Nikki was like, He was the ultimate 60s, 70s kid. So my first babysitter was not only my cousin, and he taught me how to walk, but music was in my house from 9 a.m. to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We didn't even watch television. I didn't even know what was on the TV because we were doing the whole thing. And we did that by album. We didn't even do that by radio station, right? Nikki taught me some transformative things. Every time I fell down, what do you think he said? Get back up, right? To this day, he's 70. I'm 57. If I have a bad time, he says, baby girl, get back up. Get back up. You can do that. You having a bad day? That sucks. Get back up. The other person that was my first babysitter was my great-grandmother. She lived to be into her 90s. Again, transformative to know someone who brought a standard from a whole different time frame, right? Imagine that her parents saw people who had been lynched, right? My great-grandmother was a firebrand. So when it wasn't popular, she left her child with her mother and traveled around the South singing with jazz and blues bands. That was pretty rebellious at the time. She smoked cigarettes and she had multiple lovers. Why is it important to say that? Because when you grow up in a Christian household, but your matriarch is cool like that, the first conversations that I started to have about having sex, my great-grandmother taught me. Baby, if you're going to give your body away, if you're going to do that, you must enjoy him. The worst thing that you can do is choose a lover who doesn't love you well. And I thought she meant love and emotion. She said, no, sweetie, even in a physical sense. If his sex is garbage, don't do that. Why was that important? Because women of that day didn't have those conversations, right? What did that do to a young girl? It empowered me. It empowered me to understand that I could live in cognitive dissonance. I could be a Christian. I could be a Baptist. I could be a God-fearing woman and still have an understanding of my temple and what I needed in my life. And that my ideas about my body and my sex were not only not dirty, right? But that God wouldn't keep me out of heaven because I was maturing as a woman. And no one else has said that to me. And who was going to cross Granny, who smoked cigarettes with no filters? Say something, right? So I bring these people up because it reinforces who we are and whose we are, but it also tells you that you have an opportunity to speak life into people if you are speaking truth into people, no matter your generation. And Nikki does that for me with AJ. Nick taught him a lot about put that woman on the inside of you when you're walking down the street, including your mother. Never let anyone walk between you and your mom or your girlfriend. If you do that, you're a punk. Talk to your elders with respect, no matter who they are. Even if you think they have a mental illness, you will speak respectfully to them. Even if they're talking to some ghosts behind you, they have earned that respect, son. Oh, and you will go to school because you can't sit here. And you will get faux jobs as far as I'm concerned. And if you ever fall, I will pick you up. Next slide. This is my mother and my son. When you think about the generations, and I start with my great-grandmother, this is my mother. When I gave birth to my son, it was simply that I was the carrier. I simply gave him over to her. Like she touched him first, and they have been besties for real since then, to this day. They have secrets, they do things. But when I told my mother that I was pregnant, she did two things really fast. She quit smoking that day, cold turkey. And she bought her first computer, and she'd never owned one before because she had an inkling that this generation would be computer generated. That's pretty amazing, right? Today, they are officially gamers. That's at Ignite Gaming Lounge. I can't make this up. I don't even know how to play a game. I drop them off at Ignite Gaming Lounge. I buy the fingers, the chicken fingers, the French fries, the milkshakes, and I sit back and watch them do what they do. Why is it important? Because Nikki told him about what it meant to be with a woman, to respect your elders, to do the things, reminding him of whose we are and who he is. And then his grandmother followed right suit. Absolutely. I'm your grandmother. I'm your bestie. You can tell me anything. You can tell me anything, right? Why is that so important? Because on the days that he wouldn't listen to me, guess who he'd listen to? Right? So this idea of fear. Now, this is how fear plays this interesting role. My mother would tell him, AJ, you can't go out there and get on that train. You can't go get on that bus, baby. I don't want you to do that because a young Black man in these streets out here in Chicago, you got lots of enemies. You can't go. And my kid would look at me like, I'm kind of stuck here, Mom. Can you help me out? Well, I was a recovering helicopter parent, so I was like, I ain't telling you nothing. Don't go out there in them streets. Don't get on that bus then. But his father had to say, you can't save him from life and living. You must release him. You can pour into him. You can give him instruction, but you can't leave that kid in the house. Now, my son is 18 years old. He's 6 feet tall with a mustache. What you doing? So I said, well, maybe if he can defend himself. So we put him into Taekwondo. I wanted him to be refined. He's now a 2nd degree Black belt in Taekwondo. Right? Why is that important? Fast forward. It's time for him to choose a college, a university. And he didn't get the one he wanted. Long backstory, but he didn't get the one he wanted, which was MIT. He said, I'll just stay in the city. Whatever. I'll do the first year here, then I'll transfer out. So he chose University of Illinois, Chicago. But he wasn't a little clear about that. It's an engineering physics program, right? His first class was electrical engineering and mechanics. That's an open first year class. That's a heavy class, right? Beautiful. So that summer before he started, he was feeling a little bit unsure. Happened to have my mother in the car. My mother, who walks on a cane, says, take me over to the school. I was like, for what, Mom? It's the summer. She said, take me over there. Take me over there. And we pull up in what we now know is going to be his dorm. And she says, let me out. Where are you going, Mama? Let me out. I'm double parked. I know. Pull over here and let me out. My mother got out with the cane, walked over to the dorm door, tapped on it with her cane like Gandalf, the magic wizard. The door opens. She goes in, walks the first floor, comes back out, gets in the car and says, this is an ordained place. He can be here. This is good for him. This is going to work for him. I said, well, you tell him that. We pick him up. I get them home. And she says, I visited your place. You're in the right place. God put you here in this moment, and I think it's the right decision. All of a sudden, the kid who was like blasé was like, yeah, I'm going to UIC. I need some sweatshirts. I need some T-shirts. I got to get my books. Well, why don't you talk to the old lady who just pumped you up? Because clearly y'all got a union here. Why is that important? Because who you are, take out the fear. Radical love. What is the experiment? What happens when you are free, right? MIT would have been great on his credential, but he's killing UIC because you can be great wherever you are and wherever you're planted. Next slide, please. I want to introduce you to my dad and my 2 aunts, Sandra and Connie. My dad passed away about 6 years ago. Amazing person, absolutely amazing person. And he had a shorter time with my son to talk with him about who he could be, but he had a lifetime with me. So I want to tell you that he's a significant reason about why I am who I am, right? So when I was a kid, we lived on a 1st floor apartment on the south side of Chicago. I think he died there. That's where he was. They could nothing, 5 more minutes. So my father killed spiders. He chased off boys. He was the neighborhood dad, right? Lots and lots of respect. Time for me to go to college, right? Time for me to make my decision. I said, Dad, I'm not going away. You can build a staircase from my bedroom downstairs. I'm with you forever. He said, I got some good news and I got some bad news. The bad news is you got to get out of here. You must go. The good news is that you can keep your house keys because no matter what you do in life, you can always come home. See, family is home, and no matter what, you can always come home. And if for any reason I'm not here, home is wherever your family is. So I said, well, where am I going to go to school? He said, I'm going to share this with you again. Family is home. You have family in Arizona. You got family in Wisconsin. You got family in New York, right? You got family in Phoenix and LA and San Francisco. So wherever you want to go to school, make a decision because anywhere they are, you can go. in about a week, I'd gotten a call from every single family member. Heard you making some decisions about school. I got a couch. I got a second bedroom. I can fly you out for a visit. What do you need, right? When you start removing the fear of whatever these decisions are. Next slide, please. My father started to get sick. He had Parkinson's disease, so we took a family trip. This is AJ and my dad snuggling together. Again, even in his illness, he was imparting wisdom because I thought they were asleep and they were actually talking to one another. And my dad was saying, I may not be here forever, right? This is what I need you to do. I need you to be great in spite of anything else that could happen in the world. I need you to be phenomenal. This is somebody that is not on a deathbed, but is dying actively and saying to his grandson, I might not be here. I only have a little while to share with you what my expectations are. Be bigger than me, but use my story in your life because I have paid dues. Why was that important? Because when my kid started to write his essays, he said, Mom, I'm not sure I'm Black enough. I don't have a lot of Black stories. Huh? Well, you know, like we're not broke. We ain't in the hood. I ain't never got shot at. What am I writing on my college essay? They're looking for Black boy joy. And I'm like, average Black people stuff. Like now we middle class, I think. What am I right about? I said, well, what did your grandfather tell you? He said, I can tell his story because he earned it. And his college applications began with my granddaddy, who didn't go to college, who graduated from high school and went to work to put his two sisters through school. My grandfather, who made everybody else feel safe. My granddaddy, who didn't have a lot of money, who saw a lot of terrible things in life, still loved life, still loved people, still traveled to New Orleans and still traveled to Brazil, Carnival, and still did all these things, my grandfather, and therefore he made a way for me not have to struggle. That was his college application. Next slide, please. So when my kid, who is a bruh, does all the other things that most bruhs don't do, I'm like, yeah, because you've heard that you have all these limitless possibilities. So he's an anime guy. He goes to the anime conferences. Don't ask. I don't know all the details. He's a gamer. He does Yu-Gi-Oh. He does all these things because nobody told him that this is all that you are relegated to be. This is all that you are relegated to becoming. And so he's doing all these things that other Black, brown kids don't know they even have an entree to. Next slide. So I end with, this is my spirit baby. When I saw her on Facebook, I adopted her because she is what you ought to wake up and look like in the morning. Roar. What are you afraid of? Who told you you couldn't do that? I'm going to paint my own picture. I'm going to create a world to live in that's important for me. So my story is not as important without all the people that I've shared it with, all the people who've crafted me. My story starts anew today with you, because what I do, like you might collect cars or you might collect things, I collect people. I collect people and I collect people's stories, and I try to share with them to unshackle them from their fears. And what I get from the people in this room today, right, when I see in your eyes, is your willingness to share who you are with me. So know that wherever I end up by 5 o'clock today, I'm going to tell somebody I met you. I'm going to tell somebody that I was over there at National Lewis, and the brothers and sisters over there are killing it. They're looking good. They're doing the excellent work, and they're being excellent people because you know whose you are and who you are. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Pam. And as usual, we're going to open it up for questions. If any of you have any questions for Pam, I know usually y'all so curious. Gloria.
I'm going to repeat the question so that the people can hear it, but what's your question? Yes, what happens when you're already adult and you didn't have that with fear? So it's interesting. My mother's 81, and we have this conversation a lot because she grew up poor. And so fear is innate, right? There's always this fear of what happens if I pay this bill late. I'm like, it'll be late. Right. But there's that fear of that. Let me say that the beauty of this community that you can build, inherit, become a part of, or born into, you can always shape shift your community. You can choose your friends. If you are riddled with fear, or you don't know what life is without that fear, I would strongly encourage you to get different friends. And I say that because when you have friends who coddle you in the safety of fear because they have their own fears, they just continue to support that. I can't live in fear because my friends, for real, they don't even play in those waters. I have a girlfriend who lives all the way in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, who calls me and says things like, what you finna tear up today? What you doing? Right? I have sister cousins and brother cousins who are like, I got 5 on it. You want to buy a property? Your car is broken down. I think you need to surround yourself with people who live fearlessly. And I'm not talking about the kind of fear that can get you hurt, but people who say, you could do that. I'll walk with you. Oh, you failed? Too bad. Let's try again tomorrow. But I would tell people, if you've never had that experience, that there are enough, particularly women of color, who are game changing, and you got to upgrade your environment. Other questions? Yes, one of my twins. Hey, girl. Woo! So what if your parents are the helicopter parents? Well, let me tell you this. It's really, really hard because we grow up with this idea, respect your mom, respect your dad, don't do anything to break norm with that. And I would argue that every generation, not just mine, not just yours, will have to respectfully disagree, kiss and walk, love you, mom, right? Respect mom, respect dad. And mom, your helicoptering is preventing me from rising higher than you. That's what you have to say to mom. That's what my kid had to say to me. Mom, I love that you kept me safe. I love that you embraced me. I love that you've given me every opportunity. Let me tell you the shift. Can I share this real quick? This was the shift. I'm such a helicopter parent that I took to walking a step or 2 ahead of my son. Did I mention that he's 6 feet? So I would jump out in the grocery store, girl, and just be walking ahead of him, or we'd get out the car and I would wait for him to get out on the passenger side, right? Until one day we were walking down the street and there were some folks walking towards us and they looked a little unsavory, I might add. And I decided to step ahead of him. And I remember him taking his hand, listen to me, and not only pulling me back, but he pulled me to the inside lane. And he said, Mom, I'm going to need to take this one. But it wasn't my kid. It was a man's voice that came out of my baby's chest. I had to check over my left shoulder and I was like, whoa. And the brother, he didn't just put me on the inside lane. He literally squeezed me into the lane. And I thought his body swole up because he was taking up 3/4 of the sidewalk. I had the other quarter. And what happened was these brothers had to take the outside lane. And what I heard was my dad's voice. I heard Nikki's voice. I heard my Uncle Phil. I heard his dad talking all at the same time. And so you will have to have that moment with your mother where you say, I'm so happy, Mom. But in order for you to be a real helicopter parent, you've got to let me learn how to be an airplane. I've got to fly at a different level than you. And as long as you leave the door open for me, Mom, I promise to come home. You have to do that. And here's the deal. You have to do it with conviction. And that's scary because my mama would, my mama could throw a right hook. But when I told my mama that I needed to grow beyond her, there was something in our ancestry. There was some ancestor that whispered to her, now is the time. So it's about putting some bass in your voice too. Other questions? Yes. It's really interesting. So sometimes it's hardship. His dad and I went through a divorce. That was really hard. And I was of the mind that you should stay in that marriage because That was my commitment, but it didn't serve me and it didn't serve his dad and it wasn't serving him. Through that separation, we had to find a bond because we were now going to be this 2-person unit rather than a 3-person unit, right? So we needed to do that. So hardship brings that about. But also, he saw the way that I loved my parents, modeling behavior. So he saw what I did for them. And so he wanted to model and emulate that behavior. The other thing is I can give up being a helicopter parent, but I'm never going to give up being your mother. So what he always knew and what he knows now is I will never lie to him. I will never big league him. No matter how bleak, how dark, how scary, I'm going to always be truthful. And 2, you're never going to get in trouble with me. Not like that. He said, what I said to my dad, even if I kill somebody, you can always come home. Because when you believe that in earnest, you move in the world different. So that's why we have that closeness, right? That's how it starts. Shelly made me write 2 questions. Do you want us to go over those real quick? So the first question is, how does fear, failure, or imposter syndrome influence your decisions in life? I told you my story. We won't have time to hear your story, but keep asking yourself that. Are you making that decision because you're afraid to do something different? Let me know. Let yourself know. But the question I want to end on today is, what do we have to wait? Why do we have to wait until we grow up to become who we really want to be? What are you waiting for? Why do you have to wait until you get to be 27? Oh, when I get married and I'm 38, I'm going to do this. Or when I get to be 47, it's a farce. There are lots of people who don't even live that long. And so when you say, this is what I want to be, I suggest you say, this is what I'm becoming. This is what I'm becoming. Do you want to be a medical doctor, but you suck at biology? That's a question, because some people really do suck at biology, but they still want to be a medical professional. The reality is that you can do both. You can suck at biology, get better at it, and become a medical professional. That's a truth. There are scientists who failed physics who work for NASA, right? The reality is that society gives you this bill of goods. If you fail here, you'll never be successful there. The devil is a lie. It's not true. And we have to also understand that we have white counterparts who've been operating mediocre for 400 years in power. It's not true. Your failure does not define you. It is your ability to overcome. You've had presidents who didn't know any more today than you do. You got people who run companies who cannot do math. And white privilege has allowed them to function in a way that's got you convinced that you're not enough. So I just leave you with, I'm becoming this. And if he can do it, and if she can do it, and God knows if they did it, oh yeah, you got room for me. There's enough room at the top of any pyramid for you to get there. Now, I won't big league you because I don't big league my son. You're going to have to work. And because you're Black or brown, you're going to work twice as hard, twice as long. You're going to sleep less. You're going to have stress. You're going to run faster. You're going to run harder. You might have to hit somebody in their throat like I did. But at the end of the day, how bad do you want it? And what are you waiting for? Is that fair? All right. Thank you, my friends. I'm going to get back to work.
On behalf of the community, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're inducted now to the community.
Thank you all
so much.
I love it.
Thank you. Y'all, we're gonna have another one on November 30th with Jillian Caldwell, so don't forget to come. Bring your friends. This is my ask to you next time you come. Y'all, listen up. One more quick thing. On November 30th, don't come alone. Bring somebody with you. Let's keep strengthening and growing this community every single time. All right. Thank you, everybody.